Lena, thank you so much for making time today. I really, really appreciate you being in my day today. Thanks so much.
No, thank you for having me.
No, of course I had to. I mean, so this whole series is about talking to people, honestly, who inspire me and people who I think are doing some amazing things in the world. And I've seen you on LinkedIn for some times, back and forth, the things you put out and some of the things you do, and getting a chance to chat with you and finding out all the kind of things that you can make possible was incredibly humbled. And I have to say that it's impressive to see the things that you can make happen. So, thank you for being able to just share and be able to talk today.
Oh,
Thanks.
no, thanks so much. And yeah, it really means a lot for me, like to be vocal with everything like happening in this world. So it really means a lot when someone like says they see my comments, they get like some impact and they get something of it. Like that means, yeah, I am able to deliver the message. Like, and if there is one advice I really wanted to give to anyone who would say what I can do better in this world, like
Mm.
since I really don't know, then I would tell them like talk, just talk to people, amplify your voice, talk. You're going to make a difference. You're not necessarily thinking that with talking you're making a difference, but you're actually making a huge difference because you're talking to someone, that someone is talking to another one. If you're talking to 100 people a month, then you're talking, these 100 people talk to thousands of people, like, and just do the math outside and see like how much you're actually separating the world of what you really, the word of what you really wanted to share.
That is definitely something I am trying to take to heart these days. For me, for instance, when it comes to things like social media, etc., I would say for about a year or so, even more than that, or even just in general, it's not something I put a lot of time and energy into, or just the talking, the sharing. I do research myself. So when it comes to how I think about what I want to do and my impact that I want to make, normally it's like I'll try to figure out what are some solutions, what are some actual ways that we can implement some kind of strategies to do something. And it's very, very easy when you are on the back end of things, when you're kind of behind the scenes, to think that, that's enough. You're doing the thing that you're doing, and you don't really have to say too much. I also think I deal with depression, so I kind of get off of social media as much as I possibly can. So I kind of have a 15-minute a day rule, to be honest. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I thought maybe it doesn't do so much, but the fact is, with my 15 minutes a day when I'm kind of plugged in, I get to see things. I get to see people like you who put things out, and I get to see folks who are saying things that are worth hearing. So it's always worthwhile. It doesn't have to be maybe, for everybody to do, your whole career, your whole life on there, but it's worthwhile to say something.
True. And there's always fears like around how social media would actually, instead of being a tool to connecting to others, people would think it would take a control on their life and how they are actually reacting in their life. But just a reminder here is that I've grown up in a place like I've grown up in a different places, but the most place where I spent the majority of my memories was Gaza. And the only way for us like to get to really know the outer world was connecting through internet, because there was loads of years where actually there is no crossing open at all, and to us like it was nearly impossible to leave Gaza. So you're in that place, you would never leave. But how you would actually make the connection of people, I remember like it was actually hard at first because of like how people perceive the internet. And then I remember in 2008, I was yet at school and I started throwing these comments here and there across different places, and then actually started connecting to people. So this like made me draw the picture about what is really actually internet is about, is something where I can social media connect to people, to real people, tell them my story without necessarily being physically there. And this
Yeah.
is actually, I've connected to you. We're in a very different places. We can connect, we can share, we can learn from each other. Although, like, I totally get that people would say, oh, media, social media would probably take a control of my life. But in fact, they can if you let them, but you also can control them and use them the most powerful tool for yourself to connect to people, to share stories, to inspire others, and to connect to others who share the same challenge or the same successes that you have, so you
Mm.
both can empower each other. And that is something like I truly believe in, because in the past 9 months or 10 months, I had the most difficult time, but I've connected to loads of wonderful people. And without connecting to these people, I would have necessarily felt like I am alone,
Yeah,
struggling, facing the world myself. But with these people, everyone taught me something different, that we're all in this together. So it was truly like impactful for the way that I feel now and the way that I felt and probably what I would feel in the future.
I'm so grateful that that's been, a tool and asset for you. I am thinking about during the lockdown times of COVID and everything. That was probably the first time where I started reaching out to people and just, trying to get to talk to people whom I thought had something, a different perspective, a new way of thinking and such. Because then everybody was in their own little world, in that sense, their own little box, and no one was getting out anyway. So you may as well talk to someone who's around the world versus, someone around the corner. It was the same, couldn't see them anyway. Um, but I think that's actually something that enriched so much of my life. I got to meet so many people who inspired and gave different perspectives to life. And I would definitely encourage people, no matter, where you are, what your situation is, you might have a very, very full life where you are, of people around you. But do take time to think about the people that you don't normally get a chance to chat with, don't normally get a chance to see. The world is simultaneously a very big and a very small place. And because we have these tools to make it smaller, it's something to think about, who do we have in our community and who can we make certain that we're supporting and that we actually do get to learn and listen to. So take an extra 15 minutes a day, who knows, if you're like me, has a small little amount of time. But, try to find somebody that whom you think you could learn from, whom you think you probably haven't heard their story before. And it's something that will make, your day better, your perspective wider, and give you a bit more growth than what you might otherwise have. So, yeah, I think for me, by the way, one thing I'm really impressed about you is that you've always been growing. Like you're this person who you always find your way forward. And you're saying that you're from Gaza, and most of the people I know I've met from there, they had quite a journey getting out of there in some ways. They had some different kind of experiences and stuff. But you found, your way from there to various other places. I know you were in London for some time to, gosh, you were in Turkey at some point. Is that correct as well?
I mean, yeah, I am just like for no, I'm mostly in Turkey. Like I haven't made it to London. I, you know what? Like it's never like the way that my life turned into the way that I wanted it to be. It's never been that. However, it's also like people would feel this is a negative thing, right? Like when your life and your own event in your life doesn't turn into the way that you do. I left Gaza because I wanted to go into London, but then suddenly there was some events where I wanted, oh, actually no, let's just take a step back and rethink about how I perceive things. And that come actually into a lot of a blessing, to be fair, like because it opened like my eyes into something different, that probably I shouldn't be the person who's working into cooperatives or who's sorry into large corporates and driving this world into the negativity. Probably I should fit into somewhere else.
Yeah.
So these are the sort of questions I've started asking myself when I first left Gaza. And I suddenly made the change, like for me. So it is like where that stand with the point of driving forward. So every journey we get, like, and I'm not telling here like more of like a practical thing. No, it's a practical thing. Every journey I went through, it was a blessing for me. From the point that I've worked as I've studied dentistry, which is obviously something like people would rarely go into another track, like of a different career, to the point of finding myself into a truly a new different country, working with a cooperative that has really small team with very big dreams. That's all like I think a journey that I really wanted really to embrace, that it was embrace, like this journey is really actually something I never thought of. I designed my life differently, but then it come across completely different. But do I perceive that negatively? Obviously not. It is one of the best, I think,
Yeah,
that really happened to me.
I love this. The funny thing is that we oftentimes talk about having like the goal as being an intentional, having an intentional life, right?
Yeah,
And so people will say, try to plan these things out. Think about what you're doing. Make certain that your steps are taking you to where you want to go. But oftentimes, the plans are going to change, and the reality in the
yeah,
life that you plan to be able to navigate through that changes. And there is something to be said about not just following your plan and following where you intentionally mean to go, but also just think about the direction of who you are internally and what your values are, and are you going in that particular direction. And that's something
that
I love that you do.
that's very true. With every step I took, I was always like putting the goal that I wanted. You know what? Like in a nutshell, I had a goal. I really wanted to help changing Palestinian lives for better. I had my life, my entire life, most of it in Palestine. I did see the unfairness that Palestinians go, no matter where they are. I grew up in Jerusalem, in West Bank, in the north of Palestine, and in Gaza itself. So I have been in all over the places in Palestine, and it did not change one fact about how unfairly Palestinians are being treated. So I thought, like in my life, when I really wanted, like really, you know, have when you have the dark time that you if things like are hard for you, I just remind myself with one thing. Look at your life, look at your career. There was one goal, actually, one thing that every step shares is that you wanted to drive an impact for Palestinians, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
is enough reason for you to go over the challenges and just push yourself forward. That is an enough reason. It's not really about money. It's not really about creating only a better life for myself. It's really about creating a better life for a community and making a very baby step in changing this world for a better place. And if you did not do it, then who else would do it? You need to start by yourself.
Absolutely. Having that goal that you have in your mind, if when you have something that's bigger than yourself, when you have something that's bigger than your circumstance, it's so much easier to find your way through the harder times and the
Yes,
challenges. You're not just leading yourself, you actually are a career coach. I've seen you've done that. You've helped loads
sure.
of people be able to find their own ways and such. I'm just really curious, like, what's your secret sauce for helping people to be able to find that way? Because that can be a challenging thing to be able to understand what is the thing that to aim for in your life, in particular when you have so many circumstances around you.
Sure. No, that's no, absolutely. So here's the thing. So when I've started, so when I've wanted to change my career, obviously because life is hard in Gaza. So technically, even if you're a doctor or what or whoever you are, it's sometimes you're not necessarily you would be able to secure employment or find your way of what you actually want it to be. And Gaza is facing the highest unemployment rates. They face the last statistics rate over between 82 to 84% of people are unemployed, which is quite high. So I've been coming across of this depression, this separation of people, like what else we can do in our life. If we can't do it like inside, then I've told them if we cannot do it inside, we can do it outside. We can break the borders by connecting to people online and find our way online through tech. And this is what the idea that I was promoting while I was in university, but people weren't like really, it's hard for people to listen to something until you actually do it. So I've started finding my way afterward. And
Mm-hmm.
I did not go to academy, to any boot camps, to anything. I just started driving my way into working in tech. And then as I came across this and I've started to go successful in that, I thought, okay, then since I am doing this, I can help other people to do that. So let's go and help them with their ways on finding their career coaching. And then I've started doing a couple of things between the one on ones, designing curriculums for people and designing career paths for people in tech, building up like lots of employability things that would help people. And on the top, like helping coaching some people. And actually, it went like a cluster thing. I've started with a couple of people. I ended up seeing my curriculum at least 3,000 people have read and learned that. And then I've seen
Wow.
then, oh, I've at least 300 people I helped directly coaching or helping, like not necessarily with a very lots of commitment, but at least these people I've connected to, I had sessions with, I talked to. So they would buy your idea if you're in their shoes, if you're the
Yeah.
same. So if they would come to you with an idea like, we haven't been lucky enough to have the best education at university, or we are not really like in a country where we can actually find work as an architect or as a mechanical engineer or as a dentist or so, then you can break it to the world. So you've give them something practical. Yeah, that was my story. Actually, you're talking about my life. This is what I've did. This is, you don't have borders, you can do it. And yeah, this is how it started. So I am not really the expert or someone who've been have been educated in that. It's most of like I learned it through my way of doing it.
My dear, that means you are the expert, because who else is going to know how to do and to navigate your life except for you? You're the best person to do that. And that context, I have to say, you've been able to help people through that 300 times at least. So if that doesn't make you an expert, I don't know what quite does at this point.
I mean, true. I mean, yeah, it should. Yeah.
Yeah. So take a minute, revel in the fact that that is something that you do. It's a great thing that you do. All right. And sometimes I guess I've been hearing you talk about the things that you've been doing for, a couple of conversations at this point. And I notice you have this humility, which is fantastic. I don't want to take away from that or change that at all. But I do want to make certain that you acknowledge the fact that that is a massive and a beautiful thing to do. Okay. That you are really doing something with impact that actually helps people, giving people a livelihood, making certain that people can be able to support themselves, making certain that people can try to find a way in this world. That's not a small thing. And maybe you don't pat yourself in the back very often about that, but just to say thank you, it's incredibly impressive. So yes,
Thank
acknowledge that
you.
if you can when you get a chance to.
You would think.
But I'm really curious though, because you spend a lot of time doing a lot of things. You just mentioned like all the things that you're doing. You made the curriculum, you're doing the mentoring, you have your own job and such that you're working with, and you have a lot of projects. My first thought was, how do you have all the time and energy and resources to be able to do all of that? Because that's a lot going out. What comes in to be able to support you?
Yeah, it's I think there's a couple of things actually. On an easier thing, I think I don't take it all at once. I try to take
Mm,
it like, I mean, I always think the consistency is the key. So you
mm.
don't need to push very fast, but you would need to be consistent of what you're doing to see results. So that was one of the things that I've learned. And then I've tried to ensure that I always keep it like in the heart of what I do. The other is like, actually, when you're working on something that you really believe in, that you really see the impact, it's quite different from you're doing your day job just to get paid.
Yeah.
So just seeing how people life is really changing just because someone got a job, or
Mm.
because they just listened to you talking 30 minutes, or because you've actually talked to them in a day where you've been having a hard time, is enough for me to see like, oh, this is actually is not just a work, it's actually something I enjoy. This is actually what I need to do in my spare time, or this is what I really need to do in order to make my day easier. And I take it easily. Like I take it easily. I know that I would learn through it. I am not perfect. I am, in fact, people sometimes call me crazy, the crazy brave, where I would go and do things without over calculating of what it is. So it's also like I listen to the talks of people like who've been actually doing something, and then I see it in a different way. I see it like, look, this guy is great, but he's normal, or
Mm,
she's normal. They
mm.
are still a human. So if they've been able to do this thing, then obviously I can do my little thing, because I mean we both have the same probably. I mean, it's not necessarily that he has a higher IQ, but probably he used a lot of the opportunities that he have, and nothing is holding me back from using my opportunities as well.
I love this idea that everybody has something that they can leverage. Everybody has something if they have it, they can use this to be able to improve something or to make something better, either in their lives or for other people. And I love seeing that happen and work in actual practice. My first company I ever started actually was this idea called grassroots giving. And it was this concept where people would make a list of things that they needed, or things that they thought were, resources or things that they could actually use. And then they also had a list of things they could give. Everybody had something that they could be able to share. And you take a look and you match those kind of things up. You can say, well, hey, no matter who you are, there's never a person who is like so in such a horrible situation. There's nothing that they can give. They can give some perspective. They can talk to somebody. They can help with something. They can do something. They have something they could be able to share and to give. And trying to match those up and to show that everybody has the ability to be able to contribute to a community, to be able to make something happen. And I think whenever I see that happening, when people take what they have, and they can, multiply that in some ways. You have energy, you have intelligence, you have a personality, you have a presence. Those are things that you can take and to be able to, get your message out, get your value out, get your, your career forward. That's a great example, and it's something I'd love to be able to see happen in real life. So, yeah, that's quite impressive, to be honest. But I'm curious because you started off like with marketing and such, and you were doing corporate things for a little bit, and you
Yeah.
were at some point you switched over and you said, okay, I want to be able to, apply my skills in other ways. Do you think it wouldn't have been possible to have been able to, make a difference in some ways if you had stayed in marketing, if you just stayed in, um, you know, basic project management? Are there some kind of jobs that you think, it's impossible to make a good impact in? Or do you have to work full time in the same way that you do? Or do you have to work in those kind of nonprofit sectors to be able to have the impact that you want?
Yeah, this is a really good question. I think first, no, I don't think you need to have a specific profile of the company that or the place that you're working on in order to make an impact. However, there is also certain things or certain, I would say, characteristic of the place that would make it easier for you to make an impact. And my theory behind this, if you are in a place that is drawing your energy from your goal of making a specific impact, then probably it's better to focus your energy in another place that can provide you the opportunity in a better way. In my life, I don't believe the non-profit sector, for example, is the only way to make an impact because I mean, what we are working on now, like we're kind of a CIC, we're not making a profit, but we're also been a limited company for some time and in a time. And I have seen, for example, how lovely and how people actually there made a huge impact by like driving in a fair way, getting diverse talent and empower them to work in the non-profit sector in the UK. It's actually impacted the way that I think that you don't need to be a head of a large nonprofit in order to make an impact on people. You could be commercial, you could be not. You just need to put that in the center of what you're working on. But if you realize that the corporate that you're working on is kind of like driving you away from what you really want it to be, then I don't think this is the best way for you to proceed. I have been offered really good opportunities, like really good opportunities to make good amount of money. But I was also studying these opportunities in a deep way that what does it actually translate into the reality? And in fact, I've realized it's gonna translate something into completely opposite of what I am looking for. Then my way for that was turn it down instead of free thinking a lot about it. Because, I mean, you could argue that if I am working in a large place and a good place and making lots of money, I can donate this money to people on the board, right? You could argue that. However, if you're smart enough to come up with this conclusion, you could argue that you could also make an impact with your little work, and be less of a tool for people to use it for their own purposes. The least thing I wanted in this life is to be making those who is really rich to be richer, to be honest. This is the least thing I want to. Even if that means I would take a lot of money and donate it, that's the least thing. No, I really wanted to
I
do. There is
know.
could be a more powerful things.
I've had some conversations with some people whom, they are executives in some companies that maybe you think about what they're actually doing in the world, and you wonder, are they actually making it better? And when you talk to the person who is inevitably, they'll consider themselves the good guy in the room, right? It'll be a person who's like, well, I'm there because I'm mitigating harm. It's something where, like, if I weren't there, it would be really horrible, and such. And you think, okay, there's a place for that as well. But I also wonder, I see in so many of the tech companies that I work with, I see in so many of these big organizations or these scale ups and such, I see a lot of investors who are putting money and channeling them into different kind of companies. What if they actually said, let's put the energy and the money and the resources into something that isn't something you have to mitigate? What if it, what if it is something that you can actually say this in of itself is going to be something good for the world as well? I would love that. I would love to see more of
Yeah.
those people putting their money and their resources and their time and energy into things that are not things you have to worry about. How do you balance it out? But it actually can be the good thing in your life that is propelling the world in a better way.
And do you know what? Probably not everyone would like what I would say now, but it just people have been put in their bubbles on the first lie when they've been told that if you're thinking about helping underprivileged communities like Palestinians, you're getting too political. I mean, there is a fine line between thinking about you could be like you could argue that this is about humanity, but then they showed people, oh, this is politics, don't involve with it, which is really the biggest lie that people started. I mean, to convincing themselves internally, like, guy, look, I'm gonna do great at this world. I am gonna donate my money, but this is a political thing. I don't want to involve with it. It's not a humanitarian thing. It's a political thing.
Mm.
And then they've started, these making these arguments just to feel better outside, but it's not true. And you shouldn't be relying on others to make the decision. If you know people complicit, if you know people are driving other people, if you know, for example, that you're working in a company that take advantage from Africa or from Palestine or all of these different places, you have one option here, just to leave and go and find another better opportunity, as you just said, like where you concentrate all the time and resources in. But don't tell me that you're going there because you're making money and then you're making like those people feeling better by donating that bloody money to them. No, don't tell them that. And that's something I am very I don't know. Unless you're very clever enough to go into an organization and to change the entire narrative system there. And by the time sometimes you're changing the system, you've already got it changed into what they want you to change. That's how the world I mean, what other else? I mean, we could argue there could be other ways, but this is how the world works.
I often think about when I go to different companies that I work in. I've been this person who thinks, hey, I could come in, I could be the change, I could be that person. But like, you have to at some point do the math. You realize it's a broken thing. Is it going to break you before you can fix it? And
Yeah,
that's the question. Oftentimes, I'm not superhuman. I can't do all of that for myself sometimes. And so then I'll step back. I'm like, I can't be that person to try to change it and make it better, because it may be something that is, maybe it's working as designed. Maybe it's something that is doing what it wants to do. And, if I want to do something different with my life and energy, then that may not be the most aligned place for me.
very
And you have to
true.
kind of do that math for yourself at that point. But I think there is there is something in terms of trying to make certain that the various people who care will actually act on that caring, act on the
Yeah.
instinct, and not just, have that feeling internally and say, oh, this is what I feel, this is how I I in my heart I felt bad about this, but my actions in my life I did nothing. That's something
Yeah.
where you have to try to make sure it gets externalized into something with impact.
Very true. I mean, probably this is not super relative, but I always tell people I am get it when you say I pray for you, but I would say it's not enough. I mean, I understand. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's great, but it's not enough. There is always a small action you can do, no matter what, in every single situation. From the situation where you would see your workplace where one of your colleagues is getting like dehumanized or racism or anything, into the other way where you would go into a very bigger where you would feel a mass unhumanization is happening. There is in each situation there is a small action you can do, but you choose you want it to go it or turn you a blind eye on it.
I'm curious. So you've put a lot of people into different companies, and these are folks who are coming from contexts that a lot of the companies they might be working with will have no idea about. They're not going to have any understanding about how to be able to support people. They don't know what the right thing is to do to be able to help people in that sense. They care, but what should they do? Um, what would you say in terms of if you are an employer or you are a teammate, and you happen to get one of those people that you've placed in the company, or you've gotten some work for, in their organization, and they don't know how to relate or connect to support that person, what would you suggest?
That's a good question. And yeah, it's also a hard one. While I mean I get it and I can't deny it, there is some cultural differences or some limitations where these people had in their life kind of it changed the way that they work, right? And what is their identity is. You can't overlook that part. However, you can have ways to navigate it and turn it into a strength. That's one thing, but also you can look into the shinier or the more strength point and turn them into a stronger point instead of focusing on the weaknesses point. Giving you an example of this, people who've coming from these areas are not really the best communicators. They don't know how to sell their work. I mean, they would say you it's they always would go into white or black. They wouldn't go a lot into the gray area. They don't know how to convince the employers in the best way, like of why they should hire them, right? Of why maybe they're the smartest in the tech, but they don't know it. And then this is why you would see them a lot of them don't get into a lot into the big companies because they have a certain structure they're created for themselves that they wanted to be able to follow in order to be elected for them. So what I would tell people, I mean, the way that I was managing it is really nice because I have the chance to talk to people and advocate for these people and shine the light on their strength. And by the time these companies would know that, oh my goodness, even this developer is different in the communication skill. Oh, they still have lots of experience to offer in the technical skills. Let's use that and work together on the communication side of things, for example, or in the English thing. And then I've started follow on both the company and the developer and ensuring that I am always delivering that message to both of them to kind of like on the developer side to see the area of how they can develop themselves, on the company side to see the area of what the strength of the developer and use that more and try to push them in the other things that they need improvements in. That was one thing where I've kind of like managed it, but you need to balance it in the balanced way that you're not really burning the person like onto one area rather than the other. And then it worked because us being there helping in the career coaching and helping driving this forward, it actually people started giving the idea, oh, that's it true. After 3 years or 4 years, I've started people actually quoting some of the things I've been saying, and then they would say, "Oh, actually, Palestinian talents are probably not really very talkative. They're very short in communication, but they're really good, and they are really good and the smart in doing the tech what art." And that was really nice to see, like, oh my goodness, my words is getting there, and I am not the no difference of them. I am. If you would see me talking with working with my first employer, you would ask me a question, I will try to ensure I am using the least number of words for describing it. It's a cultural thing. It's a cultural thing. You're
I
doing the
know.
very least thing, and you're afraid that you're gonna make an English mistake. So I'm like, Okay, if I talked less, they would never know that I never get a training in English. True, I
Well,
only learned English after university.
really,
So
I
yeah, so
I
it's
am constantly blown away by how good people's English is. You know, who are saying like, "Oh, I just learned it when I was an adult." I'm like, how on earth? This is a hard language, in my opinion. I think it doesn't make any sense in terms of spelling, and the grammar is really weird and such. But you're doing fantastic. You're doing a great job.
yeah. Thank you. So this is where I tell them, like, really, do you know what? I'm coming straightforward for you. You're gonna find them short in communication, but they have one, two, three, four. Do it, and then deliver this message, deliver it to others, deliver it to others, and so. And on the developer side, tell them, guys, you're good, but it's not enough. You need to improve your communication. You need to improve your other things. You need to match up cultures. You need to be open for other cultures and ensuring that you're kind of like in between. And then they start doing the same, and then you're bridging the gap in between.
Thank you for doing that. That is, I wish so many people I know who are immigrants, people who are working with international companies, had somebody like you in their lives to help be that bridge for them. Because it is a hard thing when it comes to selling yourself. I happen to be in Finland, which is a very humble country in the sense of there's not a strong culture of self promotion there. And that's a big thing that we'll see a lot of Finns that are struggling in international markets sometimes.
Yeah.
They will, they'll use fewer words in that sense as well. And, they'll also maybe not be the ones to boast about the things that they've done or they've accomplished. So I like to kind of be the cheerleader for people like this and such. So in the same way, I'll call you out for calling yourself not necessarily an expert on these things when you've done more than so many people, like most people in the world, Um, I'm going to call you out for that kind of thing and make certain that people can see that,
Just
you do amazing things and make certain you recognize that. Because I come from an American culture where people will talk about things that are not actually that impressive in a way that sounds like it is. So if you could focus on things that really are and highlight those things and make certain that there's actually some truth in all the noise, that's a value that, as a bridge maker, that helps people to connect different cultures and helps people to be able to be seen and valued for who they are and what they do. So thank you for doing that.
thank you. Yeah,
But
and yeah, thank you for putting the lights on it.
are there any things that for you that are some bridges that you wish people would help you cross? I mean, everybody needs that person to be the door opener or the bridge maker in that sense for them. For you, what would that be? What do you need in your life?
Well, maybe what I need is hard. Oh, it's actually not hard, but the way that we created the word is make it harder. I think for those people who are disadvantaged, including myself, obviously, people with color or people with different ethnic group. I mean, or you can combine them all, like myself being a Palestinian, a woman of color, and being Muslim, and I think make it easy in everything. Try to make it easy because we've enough hardship in our life. If you're in a position of power and you can really help people get visas easily to whatever country to spread the word and grow up in their things, make it easily. You don't need to make them their life miserable for a year just because they decided they wanted to take an opportunity and go inside and just go to visit another country to make a difference. You don't make it very easy for them as telling them they are not exist in every step they took because they can't find their country in a well respected country in the drop down lists. You don't always make it easy for them because they say, oh, their bank accounts is not included in the payment thing or they would need to have certain criteria. Make it inclusive. Make it inclusive for these people because they've been going through a lot. I mean, what's your definition of diversity and inclusion other than buzzwords if you're not making it easier for these people in the most things? And it doesn't need to be complex. It just this is what we wanted it to be complex, right? If people did not design it to be complex in the first place, it would never be complex. But you are this person of the change in your position, no matter what your position is. You wanted to hire a Palestinian, you wanted to hire them, make it easy also for them. You can always find a way to navigate the challenges for them, for yourself, for every diversity. That doesn't include us as Palestinians, that includes everyone who's disadvantaged, even people with disabilities, everyone. You can always drive the inclusivity in the world, no matter how powerful your position is, receive it as a real thing you believe in. So I think inclusivity is the most important thing now I'm feeling these days, that we need to ensure the world understand how important is that.
And I'm thinking for one of the things that you do, you're getting people placed in different companies, and you're getting people to be able to work and be able to get resources while they're there in the interim times and such. And hopefully finding visas and such to get elsewhere if that's what they want to do. But I don't know many tech companies right now that are currently sourcing or resourcing their talent in that particular region. I don't know folks who are like looking and saying, hey, this is where we can find some of the best folks, or we can find people who can add to our company in some ways and such, and be able to extend opportunities out in that direction. Um, I would love to see more companies be able to think about the opportunity pool they have as something they don't necessarily have to limit it to the people who live within, 100 kilometers of them at that particular point. There's something that we could talk about in terms of saying, hey, people can add value. A lot of folks can, be able to contribute to this, and we can be able to share those opportunities a bit more, broadly than what we've done so far, without having that fear of, you know, thinking of, what's the challenge that we're going to have to go through if we don't put ourselves in the position to think about what are the challenges other people are going through already, by not giving them those opportunities. It matters. It really does matter. And having a livelihood, having some ability to support yourself, that's something that is, we take it for granted so much, where I'm currently based. But it's something I would love for us to think about. How can we make certain that we're giving opportunity to more than just people that we see? And even with the people that we see, sometimes I'm in Finland right now, and in the Nordics and in Europe in general, there's this kind of backlash against, immigrants of various types, particularly people of color. There's religious, racism and ethnicities and things like this and such that are not very well respected and liked in these areas. And they're here already. And you'll see that people are not getting access to employment. They're not getting sometimes access to housing in the same ways that, if you had a different last name, if you, weren't wearing a hijab, if you had a different kind of, situation, that you might be able to, get ahead. But to make people understand that those differences, they're not justifications for keeping people out of, basic human rights, the basic things of, being able to live. I hope that we'll be able to find some way to navigate that in our governments and such. But as people, we can at least try to give opportunities where we can,
Yeah.
But
True.
I have to say, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be in your day. I think this is something where you didn't have to, give me your time, because I know it's precious. Your time is very precious and you do so many things. But the fact that you did, I really do appreciate it.
No, thanks. That was really good a conversation. Like for myself, I really appreciate it. And as I said, like it's every opportunity I get to talk to someone, it's a gift for me because I would learn something, right? I would really learn something that is I wouldn't learn it from a book or from a course. So thanks so much for being in my day today.
You know what? I want to know if somebody wants to be able to give you a better day, if someone wants to be able to support you or some of the people that you're looking to support, what's the best way to be able to do so? And what's a way to kind of be in touch with, your projects or things like this that you're trying to give more visibility to right now?
I think maybe I am always happy to talk to people through different things. So maybe the first thing is we making the initial contact, whether it's that email, LinkedIn. I am comfortable with tools, and then we can talk through it together. Where we actually can design it together or see how we can work it together. I am again like I don't have really limitations on who I should talk to, how many people I should talk to, and what place I should use. I'm very comfortable meeting everyone and just see how we can, yeah, how we can find solutions for challenges, or at least just to drive a small baby steps like forward to get something forward.
I have seen through your career and the things that you've done, you will always take things forward and you always take things upward. And I have to say that I have no doubt that you're going to be able to keep doing so. Um, I hope it gets easier for you to do so. But I don't have any doubt in my mind that you're someone who's going to find a way, wherever it's going to lead you, wherever your heart and your and your values take you. It's going to take you to where you ought to be. So I can't wait to see where that ends up being. Okay, Lina,
Thanks.
have a great one and have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm going to keep following you, keep cheering you on, and hopefully there are more people who do so as well. So take care. Have
Of
a great one.
course, thanks. And looking forward to see all the stories that you're sharing like weekly. Thanks so much.
My pleasure, honestly. Have a great one.
You too.